coming up.
As always happened, also in the past, at the beginning of so-called technology transition periods, there is a rush to shift the international technical debate on new emerging technologies. But the reality has always been something different. It is quite easy to forecast long-term successful future for TETRA that will continue to be largely adopted, in my opinion, even at least the next 10 to 15 years. It was clear that with the evolution of cyber threats and computing power, Etsy decided to develop new encryption algorithms, for example, for TETRA. But most people think that TETRA is just for voice. You can't use TETRA for data at all. That's not the case. With data services in TETRA, you can do many things with no needs of broadband technologies to do that. Broadband is not enough. You have to pick up the best of every technology to build the best possible solution, not just limiting yourself to one technology.
Welcome to Making Waves, a podcast where we explore the technology, people, and real-world challenges shaping the world of critical communications. From PMR radio to next-gen broadband, we talk with industry experts and frontline users to uncover the pain points, innovations, and decisions that determine performance under pressure. If it keeps teams connected when it matters most, we'll be talking about it here. I'm Stuart with my co-host Lona.
Hello.
And this is Making Waves. So, Lona, what do we have today?
With broadband technologies rapidly advancing, a lot of people are asking, does TETRA still have a future? Today we're speaking with a person helping define what that future looks like on a global scale. He's a TCCA board member and holds a strategic role at Leonardo Cyber and Security Solutions, but today he joins us in his capacity as the chair of the TETRA Industry Group. Francesco Pascali, it's great to have you here. To get us started, could you just tell us a bit more about yourself and the work you're leading in the TETRA Industry Group?
Okay, thanks Lona and Stuart and Dan for first of all for the opportunity, which is pretty appreciated. Okay, as you said, my name is Francesco Pasquali, and I have been working in the critical comms industries for about 30 years. I have been working in all the, let's say, the bodies, the institutions who have developed critical comms standard along the last 3 decades. I mean, like Etsy and TCCA mainly. Today, I am, as you said, not just a board member of the TCCA, but I am especially the chair of the TETRA Industry Group, which is within the TCCA working group, reporting to the board, of course, and open to all TCCA members involved in the development and production of TETRA equipment and solutions. Basically, the TIG is a business strategy group, which has the mission to promote TETRA technology and its evolution, as well as share the industry priorities and perspectives with an eye on to the evolving needs of end users, of course, as always. The TIG was born about 10 years ago from the ashes of what was previously known as Small and Medium Enterprises Group, that at that time was used to represent the interest of small and medium enterprises against, let's say, the large ones, especially in terms of intellectual property rights. Since its creation, where the group was enlarged, was extended to the big industries, basically Leonardo, Motorola, and Airbus, the TIG has always been a lively community, and today continues to expand, demonstrating the continued and renovated interest and willingness to invest in TETRA technology of the international industry community. For instance, this year we welcomed a new member, which is Teltronic from Spain. TIG, of course, today, as said, is a lively community. We have 10 industry members, and TIG continuously work together with other working groups inside the TCCA, but not only. It also works continuously in close cooperation with Etsy, and in particular with the technical committee that in Etsy has the duty for the evolution of the TETRA standard. So we are very well connected. We set priorities and we collaborate with other stakeholders for the benefit of the community, for the improvement of the technology.
That's quite a broad introduction there, Francesco, and thank you very much for that. Discussions tend to involve broadband these days with the evolution. So let's try and frame the reality versus perception here. From your perspective, where does TETRA fit today in the global mission critical ecosystem?
I would like to be quite open, frank, and straight in this. I believe that TETRA still have a prominent role as Optimum's optimal solution for voice and narrowband data-based critical communications. As always happened, also in the past, at the beginning of so-called technology transition periods, there is a rush to shift the international technical debate, let's say, on new emerging technologies. But the reality has always been something different. When TETRA was the emerging technology in late 90s of the previous century, it was at the center of the debate, just as today we have broadband at the center of the debate. But the reality has been that for years, analog technologies remained predominant at the point that for certain user application, even now, under more than 30 years, we still have analog systems being used around the world. And I believe now we have a similar situation. Everyone is quite understandably focusing on broadband. European and not only European governments are pushing to gradually migrate their national public safety networks from TETRA to broadband. But first of all, even for them, the reality is that this transition will be quite slow. It will inevitably be based on a quite a long coexistence period between broadband and TETRA. Even more, other verticals are still considering TETRA as the optimal solution for their needs. And so it is quite easy to forecast long-term successful future for TETRA that will continue to be largely adopted, in my opinion, even at least the next 10 to 15 years.
That's really interesting, and it paints a picture of longevity, very much focused on the Tetras here and now. It's mature, but nothing does what it does, so you can't just replace it. So the better together approach, which we hear many times on this podcast, is the one to be adopted. Let's just talk a little bit about, you've mentioned the TIG group, TCCA. Let's talk a little bit more about the industry cooperation, the ecosystem of support that is available through this subgroup and beyond within the TCCA, the education and advocacy and the standards alignments. What can you tell us a little bit about the group's input into those areas?
Yeah, of course, sure. In the past 10 years, I believe that within TCCA, TIG has gained credibility and reputation to the extent that it is recognized by the TCCA board itself as the point of reference for, let's say, the association strategy regarding TETRA business and technology. With this role, for example, we are the contact points within the TCCA whenever the ETSI technical committee involved with TETRA standardization needs to get feedback and feelings from the market, from the industries about any evolution of the TETRA standard. A good example for this is, for example, the latest evolution of the TETRA standard in terms of security. A couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, in ETSI started an evolutionary work for TETRA technology to develop new security mechanism. Just because being clear that lifetime of TETRA would probably be quite long-lasting, going in at least for 10, 15 years in the future, at least until 2040. It was clear that with the evolution of cyber threats and computing power, like, for example, the fact that there are always more and more powerful computers that could be used for brute force attacks against secure communication systems and so on, Etsy decided to develop new encryption algorithms, for example, for Tetra. And in that extent, actually, TIG was also involved, together also with the Security and Fraud Prevention Group of the TCCA, as one of the group of experts to be consulted for this evolutionary work. Even more, this is a work that, of course, it needs to be also economically funded, because you need, of course, a real encryption expert to develop the new encryption schemes and so on. And I have to say that the TETRA Industries gathered in the T group were the ones who actually also provided the fund for this standard evolution in Etsy. This is, I believe, it's a good example, but in daily lifetime or even of the TCCA association, actually, TIG is continuously consulted by the board, where any decision has to be taken about TETRA. And of course, TIG continuously report to the board the result of its activities.
I think you've picked on a particularly good point there, talking about the encryption. The standard is mature, and it needs to evolve with the constant threat of security breaches. TETRA has a certain exposure to this. Of course, in the mobile world, you could probably argue that the surface area of exposure is greater because there are more people trying to hack, and they're usually bigger networks. And these challenges will come up all the time. And it's not just a case of having to keep up with different encryption algorithms, which are stronger and more robust. We have to also remember that it already is quite a robust network if you have the right provision in place, like the authentication, like the key rotations for the algorithms. There are certain things which have come up just recently in the news. For instance, in Taiwan, the rail network that was brought to a stop because of an attack. Not that there was anything bad that happened, but appropriate measures were taken to bring the train network to a standstill. But it really throws a light on if you have the encryption already there, or the possibility to use authentication, then you do need to use these things. They are already there and provisioned within TETRA.
Yeah.
If they are not switched on, then you have left yourself open. So it's important to put this in two different silos. One, there's a lot of protection already there if it's switched on, and of course, with the work of your group and beyond, looking at how to enhance for the future as well. So I think that was a great example.
Let's move on to look at TETRA for industrial uses. If we look beyond public safety and look at industries such as transport, utilities, mining, and mega sports events, they continue to invest in TETRA. What operational needs make TETRA uniquely suited to these environments?
Okay, first of all, one of the main advantages TETRA has always had is, of course, that it has just been conceived for critical comms. This is why it has so many specific features that are needed for professional users and which are embedded in the technology from the scratch. TETRA networks are, first of all, dedicated networks for critical communications. And so they are designed, engineered, and deployed to maximize the availability of the service, the reliability of the network, and also the security, as we said. And this is even continuously improved by the industries, even today. I was talking before about the security, but this is the standard. But the TETRA industries themselves continuously update and evolve their own solutions and products to even improve these characteristics of security and of reliability and availability of the service. For example, another key characteristics that TETRA has is the capability to guarantee good radio frequency coverage of the land, of the territory. And this is even continuously improved nowadays with products released by the industries which improve the signal sensitivity, for example, and so the capability to offer good coverage. But there are also other developments brought forward by the industries for the benefit of the end users. For example, there are several industries are continuously improving the power consumption characteristics of their products on the network side, for example, in order to improve and optimize the total cost of ownership of the networks, which are usually being operated for 10, 15, or 20, even 20 years. So even power consumption, optimized power consumption can be a key characteristics for an end user organization along all this time. So there are several key features which are of interest of professional communication users, which are basically either embedded in TETRA technology or anyway are continuously in the focus of the TETRA industries, which are totally dedicated to this kind of market. This is something different, for example, than thinking about to the use by critical comms users, even in non-public safety sectors, of services offered by commercial operators, because commercial networks are not dedicated networks. Or, to be more precise, these are networks that are dedicated to provide the best potential revenues to the operator, which does not necessarily coincide with the interest of a critical comm user organization. Commercial networks, for example, thinking about the coverage provided by the network, are conceived, are designed, are deployed to provide very good coverage where users are located for the majority of the time, because they get revenues in this way. But of course, there are many end user organizations which might work or actually work in regions where usually smartphone users, public users, are not usually located. So this region might not be covered enough by commercial operators. And so you need, in these cases, dedicated networks like TETRA networks to provide the adequate level of service for this kind of professional users.
I think that's a really important point as that you raise there, and I want to elaborate a little bit on that. How does TIG view the relationship between TETRA and the other emerging technologies, such as broadband, MCX, LTE, 5, 6G, and also bearing in mind you just mentioned extra coverage, satellite as well, low Earth orbit satellite coverage to fill in some of those areas, which we are now seeing direct to device communication with what could be considered ruggedized versions of mobile phones as well. So do you see that as kind of encroaching competition for TETRA, or just as a complement?
I was just thinking in my mind what I've just said, actually. I mean, the storytelling that these are competing technologies is, in my opinion, completely wrong. These are actually complementary technologies that should altogether provide to the end users a much better service that any of this single technology can do on its own. This is quite clear. I mean, in my view, TETRA is still, in my opinion, pretty unrivaled for critical communication voice services, especially, and even able to provide quite reliable slow speed data services, like, for example, location services, short data services, and so on. It's clear, it cannot be denied, that TETRA does not have the capabilities to provide broadband data services. That's quite clear. And this is why broadband is very welcome in filling this, let's say, in filling this need for the users. That is a growing need, undoubtedly. And coming to satellite, of course, satellite can also be quite useful in order to complement terrestrial network, either narrowband or broadband or both, because they can provide an ubiquitous services. So, especially for some kind of end users, this can be quite beneficial. So, in my future, to be honest, the future, in my view, the future of the critical comms solutions, critical communications, will be to have hybrid solution where several technologies are combined together to provide the best possible service to the end users. And these are both narrowband technologies like TETRA, broadband technologies, and satellite.
Talking about the future and hybrid networks, you mentioned that TETRA and broadband are really complementary technologies, so they're not competing. Some assume TETRA is a static technology. What innovation is actually happening within the ecosystem today as you see it in the TETRA Industry Group?
I don't think it's a static technology at all. As I said, for example, before, we have renovated Tetra for the security part quite recently, just a couple of years ago. And the Tetra Industry Group is just now working on an evolutionary plan for Theta technologies. We are just now thinking and talking each other to see which other kind of evolution at a Tetra standard level we might have in the short future. It is not anyway, I believe, a static technology because anyway, even beyond, the Tetra standard as released by Etsy, the Tetra industries are continuously renovating their products and their solutions, enriching them with, for example, cybersecurity countermeasures for protecting all parts of the ecosystem, the Tetra ecosystem, but not only. Even, I believe, for example, artificial intelligence is starting to be used in industries, solutions, and products nowadays. So this is something that is somehow, let's say, can be even somehow collateral to Tetra, but the use of artificial intelligence, I believe that in the near future would actually be quite integrated with the Tetra products themselves. I could think about, for example, use of artificial intelligence on Tetra terminals, for example, or the use of artificial intelligence in managing and operating and maintaining Tetra networks. So there can be several areas in which Tetra technology and solutions could be renovated with the use of quite burning tools like artificial intelligence. But even more, it is something that, again, we are just starting to discuss thoroughly in the Tetra Industry Group. But there might be also other solutions and evolution of the Tetra technology itself. For example, in order to improve the efficiency of the Tetra technology even more from, for example, a frequency exploitation point of view. But this is something that, again, we will still have to go into the details within the Tetra Industry Group. So stay tuned.
I was going to pick you up on that because we're starting to talk a little bit strategically now about Tetra, what's going to be happening in 10 years' time or beyond. So it's a given that for voice, it's the gold standard. And there are some technological innovations going on, as you've already mentioned. There's the advent of, say, power control and economy of base stations controlled by AI in certain products now. We're starting to see potential for AI in not just the network itself, the base stations, but also in the dispatching areas as well. We'll see that happening more and more going forward. And I think you touched on there, and I want to go a little deeper on it in terms of the strategy of where Tetra would fit in terms of the spectral landscape as well. with other things going on in the world that we live in today, with calls in an ever increasingly populated frequency spectrum and needs by super users, typically public safety and military in particular, that may have an impact on where Tetra fits as well. So these are all strategic considerations from let's put military and public safety to one side. From the industry side of things, where do you see Tetra in, say, 10 or 15 years' time in terms of not technology, but strategically placed with some of these constraints that we've already mentioned?
Hard to say, but in the sense that it very much it will very much depends also on the fact that I believe that in 10 to 15 years, probably Tetra will basically or mainly be the technologies of reference, as you said, of non-public safety and on defense critical comms user. So at that point in time, it will depend also on the individual country strategic decision from this point of view, to be honest. I mean, nowadays, there are, for example, most countries have reserved, have still reserved UHF bands, for example, for technologies like Tetra. Will this be still the case? I don't know, in 15 or 20 years' time? Who knows? Who knows? This is why, because, for example, at TIG level, we are thinking about this kind of aspects, and we are thinking about, for example, whether we should starting to think about how to find new space, new type of allocation for Tetra, which is still needed by the market, of course. This is without any doubts. But of course, it is nowadays reserved in most countries on precious frequency bands, for example, which are pretty desired also by other types of users. But so far we don't have the only coordination, for example, at spectrum level at the, internationally is ITU and the World Radio Conference, which is held every 3 years by ITU. So up to date, there's no change, but we know that some of the frequency bands that are currently reserved for Tetra are somehow desired also by other types of users. So that's an interesting question, but it's difficult to give a definitive answer. What I can say is that this is something at the TETRA Industry Group level we are working on, and we are thinking about how to guarantee that Tetra users can still have their networks in the long-term future.
Good. Before we wrap up in a few minutes, Francesco, it's just a few questions, just quick questions and quick answers. So I'll just go with the first one. What's the biggest misconception about Tetra?
That is a static, obsolete technology. It's a dynamic, still evolving, yes, well proven, but alive and kicking technology.
Okay. Most underestimated strength of Tetra, what would you say that is?
I believe data capacity. I mean, it is a narrowband technology. That's for sure. But most people think that Tetra is just for voice. You can't use Tetra for data at all. That's not the case. With data services in Tetra, you can do many things with no needs of broadband technologies to do that. Examples are, for example, location of users. You think it can be done with Tetra. I mean, or even telemetry applications, SCADA applications. This can be done with Tetra. Even in critical environments. For example, there are driverless metro systems who are operated and managed based on telemetry data exchange with Tetra, just to make an example. So I believe this is quite underestimated.
All right, let's take the last question for today. What is the one message that the TIC Industry Group wants industry leaders to understand?
The TETRA is not the past. TETRA is the present and especially is the future. That the future of critical comms cannot be without TETRA, at least for the next 15 to 20 years. That the future is a hybrid solution, is not just in broadband, is in hybrid solution. Broadband is not enough. And it's not just broadband and TETRA, as Stuart said before, it's broadband, TETRA, and satellite. And who knows, might be even something else in 20 years' time. You have to pick up the best of every technology to build the best possible solution, not just limiting yourself to one technology.
Excellent. We are getting towards the end of the allotted time. Let me do a little bit of a recap then. So thank you so much, Francesco, for your insights today. I think we can say that safely that TETRA is something which remains operationally vital for all of the user groups, whether it's public safety or industry and business type users. And I think you've made the cases there for various scenarios throughout the last half an hour or more. TIG's role in terms of the coordination, I think you've given us a good overview now for those who weren't maybe quite so familiar with the TETRA Industry Group, what it was and what it did and how it fitted within the wider TCCA. And we've talked quite a lot about the hybrid future. And what you're saying is very much in line with some of the other guests we've had on the podcast and a lot of the news that we're seeing just recently. There's a lot going on from the major players in the marketplace, really promoting TETRA, not just for public safety, but for business and industry, but saying this is the gold standard for voice. It's not going away anytime soon, and everything else is complementary. So what you're saying is chiming completely with what the main players in the market are saying. So that's good that we have one voice, I would say. All that really remains for me is to say thank you very much to our guest today, Francesco Pasquale, and to Lona.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thanks very much, Francesco. And if you found this episode interesting, then why not subscribe? We're available on all of the major podcast platforms. And by visualizing this podcast, you'll find us on YouTube too. If you can't decide if you're in the car or whether you're at home, all of the links can be found nice and conveniently on our website. That's dancellular.com/podcast. So thanks so much once again. My name is Stuart. This has been Making Waves. And until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.